some people, they start one place and they end up another place. This gentleman is no stranger to the movie scene, but in 1984, he was packed beyond love of 2001, beyond the death. Today's movie in review, 1974, Sean Connery's Zardoz, and Kendra's bad movie review. Kendra, take it away.
Oh, this art film. It is indeed an art film.
We did the new intro, by the way.
Yes, did you know?
That's why I put on the headphones so I could hear it. Okay, good. Yeah.
So I have to admit, AJ was the one that did kind of enlighten me to the concept, because about halfway through I was trashing this film, and I will get into the synopsis very soon. And AJ was like, Kendra, think of it as an art film. And then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, definitely. This is an art film, guys, because it is exploring the concept of escaping death via an almost utopian society and how it could corrupt humankind. And oh, by the way, there are crystals involved. So very
healing crystals?
Crystals of some sort. This was truly the embodiment of 1974 between the orange costumes that they wore, as well as, and so there were two different types of societies in this movie.
Look at that, Sean Connery. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
He's a warrior.
He's a brutal.
He's a brutal.
So there were two types of people, class.
These guys in the background are brutal?
Yep, they're all brutals.
So brutal.
So these are the mortal beings that exist on Earth.
Nice.
Humankind split into the immortals and the mortals because society was collapsing. So the big head.
This thing that he's in?
Yep. The big floating head. That is one of the most iconic scenes besides the orange bikini that Sean Connery is in, that I never understood where the floating head came from. I'd seen references in Family Guy and a few other cartoons. I think maybe even Rick and Morty did a spoof on the floating head. And so if you're wondering where the floating head comes from, it's from Zardoz. So
I was wondering the face he's making. He's like,
it's very conceptual art. It's kind of startling and alarming. There's no wonder the is
he in pain? I don't get it. Okay.
The
Sparkling
Brutals
eyes.
considered this floating head their god,
okay,
right? So he gave them orders to breed and to kill and to do these things. And Sean Connery, our main character, he, you find out later in the film, he stumbled into a library and taught himself to read. And so he realizes, after reading Wizard of Oz, that his god was fake. So Zardoz, Wizard of Oz.
That's a huge leap. After reading all those books, and Wizard of Oz is the one that enlightens you. You know, you think you'd pick up on it before you discovered the Wizard of Oz. There you have a floating head there. Okay.
And the director did comment when they got to the Wizard of Oz section in the commentary movie, you know, I wish I'd had more money. And
oh, really?
And I don't understand how that would have fixed the Wizard of Oz plot hole, but more money would have certainly fixed the problems that I had with the costumes.
Right.
I mean, of course, there's the iconic Sean Connery, which at least we can thank this movie for bringing this ridiculous outfit to life.
You just love it. You keep using words like thank you and praise and like all hail Sean Connery.
It's ridiculous.
Okay.
So the big problem with the costumes in this film was the NPF ratio was just way too high. And what I mean by that is nipple per frame.
A lot of nipples.
Because Sean Connery's shirtless the entire time. One of the male costumes in the Immortals or whatever, his shirt was cut like directly under the nips,
yes,
like perfectly framing the nips. So
it was an art piece.
Indeed. You could also see the artsy.
This is the scene. This is the Bruce Lee scene with the mirrors. If you ever watched Enter the Dragon, yeah, they had one of those in it. Yeah, go ahead.
There was a lot of scenes similar to this where there'd be like a cut scene where he was going through something and they would use mirrors and projections and all of these. I'm sure at the time, 1974, it was probably like different. Nobody had done some of these things. But lots of projections, lots of just these unique type frames. Now, I do think that the concept is interesting. This idea of there's no such thing as utopia, because the second we get to utopia, we tend to corrupt it, and it tends to make us. It just cracks our mortality and what helps guide our moral compass. So this was, of course, an exploration in utopia and mortality.
Yeah.
So overall,
I mean, can I add something?
Please do,
because I did watch it.
Yeah.
You know, people mention it. It's incredibly hard to follow. You don't know exactly what is going on or where he is, or if it's a big metaphor for something, or what they're trying to convey. Kind of like in the beginning of 2001, where the monkeys touch the thing and they throw the bone up in the air and it turns into a gun. Is that actually happening? And it was a big drug trip. It obviously took place in the 70s. There's a lot of psychedelics, like the lady puts the person underneath a sheet, very LSD trippy. You know, I've seen a lot of videos and research, so it kind of looks a lot like that.
It did.
Heavily influenced. What? This lady getting her face stretched. But the lady, you know, is heavily influenced by the 70s, wouldn't you say? The culture?
Very much so. The whole Immortals society, they dressed in these flowy garments. They all had this very hippie commune vibe to them. Plus the fact that the whole concept of immortality was based around the fact that they got into this crystal. I think, if I was following the movie correctly, like that's how
There's
they
one part where
got immortality.
They're singing at a guy, and they're like, oh, and they're giving him this, you know,
the psychic mojo.
Man, it's 70s. It's 70s for sure.
It is 70s.
Are you ready to rate?
I am so ready to rate.
Okay, let me. You're gonna see a lot of Starship Troopers here, but I gotta pull them off. Pull off. This is from last week now. Okay, Kendra. Now we've had our first 5 Starship Trooper ratings. Zardoz, obviously a classic.
Indeed, a classic. Indeed.
Do we have its original ranking from our original ranking from oh, I got some extra stuff going on up top, but it's all right. Original ranking from like
Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah, let's do that.
Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 45%.
A 45%. Okay. All right, let's get back to the Starship Trooper rating.
Now, according to General Google, users 77% did like this film.
Good reference.
The classic.
Is it worth a star?
Zardoz.
1 star.
Yes.
Bing.
It gets a point for artsiness.
Johnny Rico. She says a point. I'm getting kind of nervous now. Do we even have 2 stars? 2 stars?
No.
Oh, I felt it.
It gets the point for being artsy and for those leaps in imagination and kind of exploring the idea of utopia. But man, like pulling the concept out of air into that concrete thing that Zardoz was just did not translate.
No, I'm sure not.
I mean, really, if the costumes were better, it may have made a large difference to me. Because it was just too jokey, looking at all the nips. So much nipple.
It's a lot of nip.